Hello, and welcome to What Is My Podcast About? This is a podcast where we sit down on a fortnightly basis and discuss a topic to find out what our podcast is going to be about. My name is Peter Nathaniel Graves Akerley. I am our host for this. I am the host for this podcast. And this is not me vamping. This is just how I talk normally. And I am joined, as always, by Matthew Stephen Grace.
Hello.
And Keith Edward Ramsey.
I don't know if I like this.
I realized last time, well, you guys called me out for the fact that every time I'm hosting, I make a point of saying my middle name because I just like the cadence of my name with my middle name, and you guys called me out for never using your middle names. So I made a note of what your middle names were, but then forgot to pull up the note until we started recording, which is why I had to vamp in the middle of our intro to find your guys' middle names.
But you said you weren't vamping.
I wasn't. Magic. All right.
What were we doing?
How are you guys doing? Now that we're past this awkward intro, why are the intros always awkward when it's not Keith doing it? How you guys doing?
The living. That's all I can say.
You know what? I respect that. I'm glad you're still living, Matthew. How about you, Keith?
Just doing the normal stuff. The only one bringing information to these free episodes, I guess.
Fuck you. Be better. Matt's all right just living. I need you to rise above the chaff and thrive. Okay. So Matt, what's going on in your day-to-day life? I'm not going to give Keith the joy of being the only one who participates in the beginning conversation. So I don't know. What did you do today? What'd you have for lunch, Matt?
I had a bagel.
Ooh, a bagel. Nice.
Yeah. Nice bagel.
Okay, I didn't have anything cool to talk about anyways.
From the local bakery. Delicious.
Ooh, do you want to know what I had for lunch?
What did you have for lunch?
I had cotton candy flavored Kraft Dinner.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so Kraft Dinner has these new flavor booster things, which are like a packet of flavor crystals, I guess. It essentially looks like a pack of Kool-Aid that you add to your Kraft Dinner after you're done making your Kraft Dinner.
The only difference is this is based in cheese.
Yeah, this is a cheese-based Kool-Aid type thing.
Yeah, not sugar.
So instead of so there's a couple different flavors. There's like a jalapeno one. I think there's a ghost pepper one. There's like poutine and butter chicken. And there's cotton candy. And when I went to the grocery store, oh, and buffalo wings. That's the other flavor. Yeah, and when I went to the store to pick up some flavoring for my Kraft Dinner, they were out of every single flavor except for the cotton candy, and I was curious to try the flavoring, so I got the cotton candy, and it was a trip.
Man, that's like the macaroni and cheese flavored ice cream coming to the U.S.
Oh, you're right, it is.
Do you guys know there's also...
I really hope that doesn't come up here.
Do you guys know about the Cheetos flavored mac and cheese as well?
Yes, I have tried that stuff as well.
I'm pretty sure it's just crushed up Cheetos. That's what the powder is.
It's not as good as Kraft. Unfortunately, I haven't tried all the flavors. I just tried their bold and cheesy one. Because once again, the grocery store I went to apparently got picked over by fucking everybody, and they only had the original flavor, bold and cheesy. It doesn't taste. I mean, it tastes like Cheetos, but in the sense that it tastes very fake cheesy, and it's not the most pleasant pasta experience. That's my opinion. I think we've boxed Keith out of the conversation enough now.
Yeah,
What's going on in the world?
Let's move past that.
Maybe I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Well, then I can share some information about games that are getting released.
No, I got this.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm not actually going to talk about games, but we did get an announcement and a trailer for the Hawkeye Disney Plus series.
Yeah, I saw that. It's looking like it's going to be pretty solid.
Am I the only one that got Shane Black vibes from the trailer?
Probably.
Most likely, considering I haven't seen the trailer yet.
Yeah, it's, the classic Shane Black of it's an action movie with some humorous dialogue set in the Christmas-ish period. Like, Iron Man 3 or Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of those vibes.
Kiss, kiss, bang, bang.
Kiss, kiss, bang, bang. I guess it was kind of set during the Christmas period. I didn't really think of that until now.
It's always in the background for Shane Black, more often than not. But yeah, I don't think Hawkeye is going to be the best thing Disney puts out, but I think it's going to be the most fun thing Disney's going to put out.
Yeah, I definitely I get the feeling it's not going to be the one people are theorizing about on the weekends. I don't know why I specified the weekends, the weeks between episodes, but I get the feeling it's going to be a very enjoyable thing to watch.
But what if the madman at Disney decide this is what we're revealing Mephisto in?
I'd be into it. If this was the final Mephisto thing. The first series they have where no one theorizes about Mephisto is the one where they throw Mephisto into.
And then they just have Hawkeye kill Mephisto at the end.
What if they've written a Mephisto plotline the final episode of each series has had Mephisto written into it, but as a separate episode that they shot and filmed and edited to potentially release, and then the moment people theorize about Mephisto, they delete the episode from their fucking servers and just get ready to go with the non-Mephisto plotline until someone finally stops theorizing about Mephisto.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. But yeah, Hawkeye is something to look forward to November 24th. So it is going to be the holiday season as well.
Yep.
Yes, we are approaching that time again.
Well, it's spooky month next, so.
Yes.
Good old Spooktober.
Spooktober is the barrier between Mariah Carey and the rest of the year.
Thank God Mariah Carey has only tried traveling backwards through the year. If she tries to carry forwards and we just never hear Mariah Carey stop after Christmas until we get back to Spooktober and there's just 1 month where we don't hear Mariah Carey, that would be unpleasant, so I'm glad that's not where we're at with our world.
Now, there was one other big thing that actually happened since we last got together and did this, but Sony had their game show presentation thing.
Yeah. I recognize what you're trying to say. Saying it's a game show presentation makes it sound like it's a game show where they were getting people to guess words on a big screen.
I mean, some of the trailers were kind of like that.
Yeah, I guess so. I take back my comment.
But yeah, two of the things I'm very excited for is we're getting Knights of the Old Republic remake. So this is the original Bethesda game.
I am very excited for that. One of the key details to note here is it's not a remaster. They're not making the same game but making it look better. They're fully remaking it from the ground up. So you can expect fairly significant changes from the base game. They've hired new writers to completely rewrite the plot with it following similar beats. So I don't know. It'll be different, but hopefully it'll still have all the good times that we had with KOTOR.
Yeah, like the Final Fantasy VII remake effect, hopefully.
Yeah.
Also, Alan Wake is getting a remake. Now, I'm excited for this, but I'm more excited for the implications of what this could mean.
How so?
Like a new Alan Wake series?
So have you guys played the Alan Wake games? Alan Wake and Alan Wake American Nightmare?
Nope. Because when you first told me about them, you also mentioned that they were horror games.
Kind of.
I've played a little bit of them, but they never really grabbed my attention.
So the Alan Wake video game ends with a cliffhanger that American Nightmare kind of fills in what's going in but doesn't resolve it. And the games didn't get popular until after Remedy had already kind of moved on to the next thing. So unfortunately, they wanted to do a sequel to Alan Wake, but they couldn't. So they made American Nightmare to kind of tie things over and then went on to do Quantum Break. So people are speculating that because they're doing a remake now, it could be to get attention back on the franchise so they can then make Alan Wake 2.
That idea. One of the games I saw from the PlayStation Game Show, as we're now calling it, is Thor Ragnarok. Or not Thor Ragnarok. God of War Ragnarok. Which also looks fucking sick.
A lot of people were upset that Thor wasn't Marvel Thor for some reason.
Yeah, they thought the epitome of Thor was Marvel Thor. The other comment I saw is like a lot of people were referring to Thor as Fat Thor, which honestly is actually pretty close to Marvel Thor right now. So it's weird that they're upset about that. But he's less so fat and more so like. Do you guys know what I mean when I talk about like the bodybuilder body, or not the bodybuilder, but like the strongman body as opposed to bodybuilder body?
Yeah.
Where like the bodybuilder's got like the trapezoid shaped body and it's all rippling abs and stuff, but like the strongman who actually knows how to like lift a fucking bus, like their chest just looks like a barrel, and that's pretty much what fucking Thor's got going on here. It's less.
And Norse mythology Thor is literally a gluttonous like jackass essentially too.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy who just fucking takes what he wants and consumes it without caring about other people. And given how the previous, first of all, how the original series of God of War handled the Greek gods, and how the most recent God of War game not only handled the Norse mythology, but also just how the game as a whole handled being a game. I'm actually really looking forward to this game and seeing what it does with Freya and Thor and all them. It should be a fun experience for everyone.
Yeah. Know what else looks like it could be a fun experience when it comes out?
What's that?
Is the PlayStation's announced game Forspoken.
What is Forspoken?
Well, as we all know, being the weebs we are.
I don't know what you're referring to. This
heard
is
of
a
it.
very
Being
clearly
weeb,
not weeb podcast.
What does that word even mean? It sounds so foreign.
Well,
I think it's the Americanized pronunciation of otaku, if that helps explain it, Keith.
Those don't sound anything alike.
yeah, but anyway, moving on. It's essentially Isekai, the game. So main character gets transported to a high fantasy styled world and gets magical powers. And don't really have too much information on the game at the moment, but the game just looks phenomenal.
So how early in the game do you get hit by the bus?
Well, the description here says that you go through a portal from on a bus, so not necessarily hit by a bus, but transported via bus, I guess.
I guess. I don't know what I guess. That was a weird choice of word, but I guess. Yeah, I had honestly heard nothing about this game before today. And if you ask me about it tomorrow, I will probably still have heard nothing about it.
Fair enough.
But that's not a bad thing. Some of the best games are the ones that you know nothing about, so you have no expectations, and then they are only positive experiences.
You know what game announced that I have great expectations for? That's going to be revolutionary. Grand Theft Auto 5 for the PlayStation 5.
Oh my god.
Oh, I thought you were going to refer to Skyrim Anniversary Edition coming out in November.
Oh, you mean Skyrim Legendary Edition?
Yeah, pretty much. It's Skyrim now with preloaded mods is what it is. Honestly, the way Keith said the game he has great expectations for, I thought he was suggesting they were going to make an adaptation of the Charles Dickens book, Great Expectations. And I was like, how does that even work as a game? But all right, yeah, I'm down. Let's see what this is.
You'd be surprised.
I don't know. I don't like that that's the way my brain works, and I jumped to the conclusion that it was a Great Expectation game. But, yeah. Cool.
There was another interesting... Now, I'll step back a little bit. So, Spider-Man 2 got announced, made by Insomniac, so the guys who made the last two Spider-Man games for Sony. That's pretty cool, because that's coming out in 2023. It looks like we're getting Kraven the Hunter and Venom in this one.
Nice.
But the thing that's interesting as well is the fact that Insomniac is also going to be doing a Wolverine game. So could we be getting close to a video game connected universe?
Oh, the Marvel... the MVGU, the Marvel Video Game Universe?
Yep.
I don't know about that. Movies are one thing, but spending $90 to $100 for each installment of a game in a cinematic game universe,
Oh,
that seems a little too much.
especially where the way the cinematic universe works, and like you don't have to, but it's highly encouraged to consume all the media, so you notice all the little interconnections. So the idea that like you would be encouraged to buy every single one of the AAA games that comes out, so you can notice all the connections to every other one of the AAA games that they've released.
And the
Yeah,
N amount of DLC on top of that.
True.
you're right.
Regardless, the fact that Insomniac is making a Wolverine game, I am actually very confident this is going to be a good game.
Yeah. Did we actually see anything in the Marvel game, or was it just like a teaser trailer?
So both of them had no gameplay. It was teaser. So the Wolverine one was clearly there was a bar fight and a guy stands up, pulls out a knife, and he's walking over to the guy, and it goes in on his hand, and then the claws shoot out, and then just the title Wolverine pops up on screen.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't expecting there to be an actual gameplay trailer of Spider-Man 2. But then again, like,
well,
given
Spider-Man
what we
2
saw
was like them beating up a bunch of thugs essentially. Well, there's like a guy in the background talking about hunting the greatest thing ever, and everything's been
Fair.
a letdown. And then it pans over, and then it shows something walking out of an alleyway, and then it reveals Venom.
Fair. So, yeah, that one I wasn't expecting a gameplay trailer, but given we know what the gameplay for the first Spider-Man game was like, and just the idea that both Venom and Kraven the Hunter are being included, like leads me to believe it's going to be a solid game no matter what. Wolverine, I'm curious to know what that game would be, just because like with Spider-Man, there's the built-in extra shit going on. Like it's not all fighting crime. There's stuff where you're investigating or working on fucking science stuff. Like there's other stuff they can work it in, so it doesn't just feel like you're going from one fight to another fight. There's other stuff going on. I'm curious to see how they handle a Wolverine game, because with that character, it feels very much like you would be just going from one fight to another fight. Not that I'm saying it's going to be bad. I'm just curious to see how they're going to handle the game. That being said, with what I said about Spider-Man 2, if they fully twist the script and instead of playing as Spider-Man, you're literally playing the entire game as Kraven hunting Spider-Man, I would be so into that. I can't put it into fucking words.
Yeah, and for the Wolverine one, like I think if we're expecting it to be it's in a city and we're running around as Wolverine, I don't think that will work. But there is a lot of ways you could do it. Like maybe it's a situation kind of like the Tomb Raider games, the more recent ones, where she's stuck on an island with like all the bad guys, right? And there's some level of like explorativity to it, where it's not so much that he's running around the city; it's an open world, but it's more of everyone's an enemy, kind of like a Far Cry game.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if they tried to set the Wolverine game in an urban environment.
Wolverine in New York.
Yeah, Wolverine as a whole makes a lot more sense in rural or even like fucking uncivilized areas. Makes a lot more sense. I could even imagine it almost like was Far Cry 4 the one where you hung out in USA in like a cult city?
Yeah.
And everyone, yeah. I can imagine it being kind of like that one, except not necessarily a cult, but just like a small town, a like wide rural area that's been taken over by like sentinels or something like that.
It was actually Far Cry 5. 4 was Megan Pin.
Right. All right. So Far Cry 5 then. I can imagine it being something like that. That's all I was saying though, is that I need to know more about the game before I get excited for the Wolverine game, just because we have seen Wolverine games in the past, or not necessarily Wolverine games, but we've seen like X-Men games where you play as Wolverine and it's literally just a side scroller beat 'em up. Even in 3D, it's a side scroller that's not 2D. Beat 'em up is what it ends up being. So I would want to see more of what the Wolverine game is before I decide whether or not I'm excited.
That's fair.
All right. Is there anything else we should discuss before we get into it?
No, that's really the main things I wanted to talk about.
Matt, do you have anything else?
No, I think we should get into the ring right now.
Okay. So for my favorite listeners who don't bother reading ahead and get to find out at this point in the podcast what we're talking about. Today's podcast is about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the newest Marvel movie. Thank God we could talk about new Marvel movies again. I know we started with Black Widow, but now we're actually getting into the season where they're going to be releasing new ones quite regularly, so this is a good time to be alive.
Imagine my excitement when I learned that Marvel was releasing a martial arts-based superhero movie.
You mean they made a Iron Fist movie? Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Daredevil?
Yeah, Daredevil. Yeah, no, this movie was... Alright, so before we talk about the plot, I just need to get this out of me. This movie was fucking sick. I enjoyed this movie immensely.
Yeah, it was very different from everything else in like a refreshing way that was still Marvel, but they also didn't lean too heavy into the Marvel universe being a thing. It was more so nods to it without it actually affecting anything.
Yeah, it very well, like, yes, we referenced earlier in the idea of a Marvel video game universe, how you have to buy each game to notice all the little connections. This one was one that very much kind of stands on its own legs. There are some subtle references to other Marvel properties, and of course the post-credit scene is a straight up, like, here are some other Marvel characters just to make things interconnected again, but this movie itself didn't rely on too many other properties. The biggest connection it has is to Iron Man 3, and that's because it was fixing people's problem with Iron Man 3.
What do you mean problem?
Well, the biggest complaint everyone had with Iron Man 3 was that they did Mandarin dirty by making it just a British actor who was pretending to be a terrorist.
Oh, he was a good guy.
Ben Kingsley was great. You take that back.
No, I'm not saying Ben Kingsley wasn't great. I'm saying that that's what people most commonly complained about Iron Man 3.
People were upset that they were promised Mandarin and got no Mandarin.
Yeah, they were promised Mandarin and instead got Extremis.
They got Orange.
I mean, technically, they also didn't get the Mandarin in this one.
Kind of got the Mandarin, it's just he wasn't called the Mandarin. They actually got the Ten Ring Society properly, which is...
I do love that whole thing. It's like, he called me the Mandarin. That's an orange. He had people scared of a chicken dish.
Chicken dish, yeah. Which I did enjoy. Like, they make a reference to, like, how he was trading on fucking Wenwu's popularity. Wenwu being the leader of the Ten Rings and the owner of the Ten Rings. Two different concepts with the exact same name. He was trading on his stock and, like, using his infamy to make himself seem like a bigger deal, but just came up with the name of the Mandarin to help sell it, which, like, kind of fixes the fact that Mandarin is kind of a dumb name, and justifies it as it was a white guy trying to come up with an intimidating East Asian name and named himself Mandarin. So anyways, to get into the plot,
yeah, because, like, I was going to say, well, based on what you were saying earlier, how this was kind of like when they first released Ant-Man, how they were introducing a new character or a new couple characters to the cinematic universe, and how we got Shang-Chi and his friend Katie, or Katie's her name?
Yeah,
played
Katie.
by Awkwafina.
Yeah, and, like, I love their two characters at the beginning because, well, they're not who you'd expect right off the bat to be in a superhero movie. They're both valet workers. They're valets, driving cars, parking cars for a living. And
well, not just parking cars, but also joyriding in those cars that they are parking.
And we get from Katie's family that she's a disappointment to them because she likes her job as it is now and doesn't want to achieve anything more.
Yep. She's a disappointment because she's a disappointment. Let's just be real about that. But yeah, she is not the most popular of people among her parents. Yeah, and it just so it actually opens with, like, the explanation of the Ten Rings and about how several thousand years ago this guy found them and created an army and slowly started taking over the world without taking over the world.
Also, they're very vague about where the rings came from. It's like, it was a tomb or a meteorite. And it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing here. You're trying to still figure out what you want to do with this.
Yeah, because in the comics, I think the most widely accepted explanation is that they came from Fin Fang Foom, who is an alien dragon from outer space.
Well, not specifically Fin Fang Foom, but his species. But Fin Fang Foom was on the spaceship that crashed that had the 10 rings.
Yeah. And
actually, I think he was the navigator, so good job there, Fin Fang Foom.
Yeah, and I believe
Fin Fang
one of the alien dragons from outer space was like buried in a tomb with the 10 rings or something, and that's where the Mandarin originally found the 10 rings, was in this tomb with an ancient dragon from outer space. Ancient alien dragon from outer space. That's where he originally found the rings, like in the comic books. So they're like kind of leaving it open to like in the future, maybe they will go with Fin Fang Foom. Maybe they won't call him that because Chinese people fucking hate that name because it just sounds like a white guy making fun of Chinese names, which is understandable why they would hate it.
I mean, that's why they changed, like, in the comics, like, Fu Manchu and the Mandarin aren't that anymore. They're just, they've changed them.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like they're leaving it open to introduce Fin Fang Foom in the next Shang-Chi movie, but just not calling him Fin Fang Foom to not upset like half the world's population. So yes, they're very vague about where he got the rings from. They're leaving it open to decide how exactly they want to handle it. Also, just to like put it out there, they're less rings and more bracelets, but that's cool too. They're ring shaped, so I guess they're still technically rings.
It's just a question of when does a ring stop being a ring when you increase its size.
Yeah. And if you're talking about mathematically, never, which is cool.
Doesn't. Like, look at the rings of planets. They're huge.
Saturn has rings, and they're much bigger than the rings that Wenwu has.
Yeah, you wouldn't say Saturn's bracelets.
I might say Saturn's bracelets. I'm going to start referring to them as Saturn's bracelets.
Man, you can really see the bracelets on Saturn today.
It just, like, not that the concept of Saturn's rings sound intimidating, but Saturn's bracelets just sound like they take any level of majesty or intimidation out of the concept. It just makes Saturn sound like a little girl just saying, look at Saturn's bracelets. They're so big and pretty.
It makes Saturn sound so delightful.
It makes Saturn sound like the kind of person you'd, like, hang out with, but, like, not too often, because they're a bit much to hang out with.
They define their whole personality by bracelets.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. I'm absolutely referring to them as bracelets from now on. So, yeah, we get that whole explanation of how this warrior prince guy found the rings. Not even really a warrior prince, just a warrior found the rings and used them to amass a lot of power. And then he wanted to
make him immortal or something?
And he broke out of a Dynasty Warriors game.
Yeah, he very clearly did break out of a Dynasty Warriors game in that he's one man charging into an army and just sweeping them out. But yes, so in the comics, each of the rings provides one of 10 different quote-unquote magical, but they're technically not magic. They're alien dragon from outer space technology.
Well, it's the way Thor explained it in the Thor movies. It's like, for you it's magic, for us it's science.
Yeah, it's any sufficiently advanced technology starts looking like magic, and that's just what's going on here. But yeah, each of the rings in the comics provides a different effect, and one of those effects happens to be immortality. In the MCU version, it looks like they collectively provide multiple effects together, and it just so happens that one of them is immortality. One of the effects you get from the whole set is immortality. It's kind of implied in the comic books that if you could steal like 2 or 3 of the rings and gain 2 or 3 of the powers, whereas in the MCU it seems kind of like they're a pack. My brain just stopped.
But not necessarily, because like jumping a little ahead a bit, near the end of the movie, they are split.
They are kind of split, but you can still tell that they're tied because there's that scene where they're like doing tug of war over the rings.
Yeah,
and even though half of them are yellow and half of them are blue, they're still interconnected between them.
Also,
they're still linked together.
I think the implication too was that Wenwu had no idea of the true potential of the rings either, and was just kind of using them. So I think they're playing with the idea that what the rings can fully do, we've not seen yet.
Yeah, it's very heavily implied that the that he only got to tap the surface of the rings. Like, as we see, jumping all the way to the end of the movie, because that's where we're at, because that's where you need to be to discuss the rings, I guess. Whenever Wenwu uses the rings, they glow like a bluish color. And the only things we've ever seen him using the rings for is the kind of immortality that they give him, I guess, is one way. But then he uses them sort of like physical projections. Like, he uses them for essentially telekinesis, except it's not telekinesis, it's ring manipulation.
Uses them as projectiles, uses them to punch hard, uses them to jump.
And whips.
Yeah, and essentially everything comes down to them just being used as projectiles, because when he uses them to punch, it's him punching and then the ring shooting off as his arm, hitting someone, and then coming back to him. And when he uses them to jump, it's him throwing them into the ground, and the force that he throws them with launches him up in the air, and then he pulls them back to him. It essentially all just amounts to him using them physically. And then when Shang-Chi starts to take over the rings, they glow yellow, which could just be a way of showing that different rings are controlled by different people. It could also be a way of hinting that Shang-Chi's just accessing a deeper power of theirs, which is why they glow yellow.
I'm sure it has nothing to do with the color-coded final fight of blue versus red.
Of course not. And then we also see him do essentially a Kamehameha with them, as the other thing we see him do. So, like, in the brief time that Shang-Chi has access to the rings, we see him do things that Wenwu never did, so it's definitely implied that Wenwu was not using them to their full potential. And I don't think Shang-Chi has used them to their full potential yet either. I think that's in the next Shang-Chi movie, or movie that he appears in. I think we're going to see more interesting effects out of the rings.
Yeah, this could be something along the lines of they're making it that... Because I don't think they're going to use the 10 rings as just the 10 rings. After all, they made the Tesseract and the Space Stone be the same thing in the Infinity Saga. I think we're to the point where we have to understand that Marvel is going to change things up and kind of combine or separate things. And it could be that the 10 rings are going to be a key item, as implied at the end credits, but it could also be that there's a level of sentience or choice to it where, like, you need to be, like, the chosen one, quote-unquote, to actually use its full power, or it needs to accept you or something like that.
Yeah, and we even get, like, a hint of, like, Shang-Chi being the quote-unquote chosen one, in that, like, in one of the flashbacks we see to him as a child, his mother's telling him he has the heart of the dragon in him, which could just be her way of telling him he's very brave, and he will need to be brave, or it could very well be like, you are the one of prophecy, you have the heart of the dragon, or something like that.
I've hidden the dragon's heart inside of you, don't tell Sean Connery.
Yeah. So we don't know exactly how that's going to pay off, but that could very easily be something that they allude to in future movies.
Good chance.
Anyways, now that we've addressed the 10 rings, back to where we were in the movie, which was the very fucking beginning. We get told about the rings and about how bad boy McCool guy, Wenwu, that's his name, thank you.
No, go back to the last one.
Bad boy McCool guy has been using the rings to slowly take over the world, but in a less obvious and overt way. And then he becomes obsessed with the idea of Ta Lo, ancient, magical, mystical city, where he can gain the power of power. It was unclear exactly what he wanted from Ta Lo, but it was clear he wanted it. So he goes there and he meets a hot chick who's protecting Ta Lo, and they get married and have 2 beautiful children who are then raised to be assassins.
Yeah.
Well, that's not entirely true. One was raised to be assassin, one taught himself to be an assassin.
One was raised... sorry, so to add a little bit more context there, they were raised to be children at first, and be a happy family.
Raised to be children?
Yeah, they were raised to be children for all their lives, and then the mother died, and the boy was raised to be an assassin, and the girl was not raised from that point onward. She was forgotten about, and we don't care about her anymore, at least from Bad Boy McCool Dad's perspective.
It is impressive, though, that she did train herself to be an assassin, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very impressive that she trained herself to be as good as, like, not even as good as, better than the people who were actually training at that stuff. Because, like, some of the stuff she had to train herself without anyone else was grapples and shit like that. And the fact that she could figure that out on her own and be better than people who trained with other people is very impressive. So anyways, we go to the modern day, and as Matt said, joyriding teens who are also valets, and
I
are
don't think they're
disappointments to
teens.
their mom. Yeah, I guess they're 20, like they're in their mid-20s, because I believe Shaun said he was 16 when he got to America, and
It's been like 10
Awkwafina's
years.
character Katie said it's been about 10 years. So I think they're mid to late 20s. They're like 25 to 27. Somewhere in that range is where they are, based on dialogue lines, which now makes me realize that apparently we're all older than Shang-Chi, and that's what have I done with my life that Shang-Chi, who is younger than me, has already saved the entire dimension from a beast from another dimension who wants to consume souls.
No, it's okay. If you look at the comic, Shang-Chi's like gotta be pushing like 90 at this point.
Oh, thank God, I still have time to save the world from a beast from another dimension who wants to consume our souls, I guess is what I'm going for here.
You know what, Peter? I believe in you.
Thanks, Keith. That's all I needed to hear. Fuck, what is my life? All right, so their life is pretty boring, except for the fact that they go and do karaoke. They have a very fun line where they realize they have to work in the morning. They should probably go to bed, but and then smash cut to karaoke. Everyone has a good time. I had a good time. I don't know about anyone else. I was singing along, and the people around me kept shushing, which was not the lyrics to the song, but I guess they were doing their best.
The thing I also liked is the payoff to this one at the end too, where like it's
Yeah.
the same thing. It's like, oh, wait, like there's a lot of stuff. You guys are now, I guess, kind of members of the Avengers, so get ready for all the crazy shit. You should probably rest up. And it's like we could, but then Wong's there with them.
Yeah, it's your life's gonna start accelerating faster than it ever has before. This is gonna be a very tumultuous time in your life. Get lots of rest. And they're like, we could do that, but and then it's Wong singing along to Hotel California with the rest of them. Pretty great.
Yeah, I never realized
pretty great.
that Wong needs to be in more of this stuff until recently.
Wong's
Yeah,
incredible.
Wong's in everything.
watching this movie made me realize that Wong needs to be in the entirety of the MCU.
Oh, the
Every
first time
single
I saw
movie they
Wong-
made needs to feature Wong.
The first time I saw Wong in Doctor Strange, I knew he had to be more prominent.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Because when
His
he's
whole
not around,
fucking-
something is Wong.
His whole fucking librarian scene. He's a good guy, and we should hang out with him more often. Is what I'm trying to say. And by we, I mean the MCU.
I mean, you just need to stop that demon from eating everyone's souls, and you're good.
Cool. I feel like I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself, but I'll do what I can. So after light night of karaoke, thank you for reminding me of the word. They take the bus to work, and it's nothing eventful happens because nothing eventful ever happens on a bus. Most movies have that classic public transit scene just so that they can establish these are normal human beings like everyone else who also takes public transit, and nothing of importance ever
Now,
happens on
I'm going to
public
stop you
transit.
right there, Peter, because I've seen Speed 1 and 2.
You're right. Also, from my personal experience of being a normal human being who also takes public transit, it's always a fucking trip, and that was not meant as a pun. I apologize, Matt. Being on public transit, because like it's always there's someone fucking insane on the bus every single time you take the bus. So to say nothing eventful happens and is just misleading. So, anyways,
Yeah,
yes,
like
much
Clev,
like
who
Speed.
vlogged the whole trip.
What?
The dude who vlogged the whole trip.
You're right. That is the major plot point that happens on the bus.
I'm going to admit,
is-
I laughed a little too hard at the I took karate once when I was a youth, so I'm going to critique this fight.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a pretty fucking great line. But yeah, that's like the major plot point that happens on the bus is Buddy videotapes Shang-Chi, and that's how his name gets out.
I think you mean Busboy.
Yeah, sorry, Busboy. That's how they find out about Busboy.
Now, it's clear Shang-Chi's going to be in Avengers 5 whenever that happens. I really do hope that they pay off that Busboy joke a bit further, because as far as the people of the public know, he's still Busboy.
Yeah, no one, like, the Avengers are aware of the fact that, or might not already be aware, but clearly some of them are aware, and hopefully all of them will be aware of the fact that he fought the whole other dimensional beast that wants to eat souls. But I do hope he like appears in an Avenger scene in the public, and like someone else is like, Shang-Chi, I need you to like get on top of that roof and fight this different interdimensional beast that also wants to eat souls, because that's what you're good at. And then one of the other people's like, holy shit, is that Bus Boy? Also, I want them to have that exact voice that I just used. That was on purpose, is what I'm going with.
Bus Boy's an Avenger. Can anyone join now?
Also, I like the idea that they're calling him Busboy for the sole reason of it doesn't sound like a guy who did something cool on a bus. It makes it sound like he works in a restaurant and busses dishes, and people are still impressed with that fact when they like enthusiastically refer to him as Busboy.
Sometimes you just have to have commitment to join the Avengers.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, that's the exact scene I want. Is someone enthusiastically calling out, "Holy shit, Busboy is an Avenger," and then they have the one person who hasn't seen that YouTube clip be standing next to them. They're like, "Wait, that guy's a Busboy? How the fuck? What is the selection criteria for being an Avenger?"
It's been really low after a lot of them died or left.
Yeah, it's fair. A bunch of them died, retired, went back in time. That whole
They
shit.
have some slots they need to fill.
Okay. Sorry, that one, like, I couldn't tell if Matt was making a pun when he said they have some slots to fill, and I, like, did my, like, I broke my cardinal rule, which was I went back and tried to find the pun in that sentence, which is why I paused for a second. I couldn't find it, so don't correct me if I'm wrong, there was no pun there. So, obviously, Shaun beats up some people on a bus, but gets his favorite necklace stolen. So he has to
by Razor Fist.
Razor Fist. Thank you. I almost forgot to refer to him as Razor Fist, which I was in the theater and I legitimately chortled when I saw that his name was Razor Fist, because they just show a guy with a machete for a hand with like a cauterizing tip, essentially. Like, it looks like it's a heated tip on a machete for his hand. And they don't like refer to him by name or anything like that. And then in a later scene, they steal his car, and it's very clear that his name is Razor Fist because it's spray painted on the side of his car.
Also, it's an electric car.
Yeah. And I legitimately laughed in the theater because all I could think of when I saw Razor Fist was Taserface from fucking Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So I was just sitting there fucking chuckling at like the time he comes back with his car, and they're like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, I got like the machete for the hand, so I think I'm just gonna start going by Razor Fist," and like just the rest of his crew just fucking laughing at him for trying to change his name to Razor Fist. So yes, he fights Razor Fist. Razor Fist takes his necklace, and so obviously Shaun realizes that his father is coming after him, and he needs to track down his sister.
Because his sister also has a pendant that they're apparently after, and he must warn her.
Also, she recently sent him a postcard with just her address, obviously like in the from section, and then a picture of a kind of like origami dragon, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, it was what would happen if you folded origami to look like a dragon, is what she sent him. And clearly that meant something to him. So he went to go rescue her. Which is weird, because she did not need rescuing.
Not at all. When she left their home, she started her own underground fight club.
Well, on top of that, through the whole movie, I think Shang-Chi saves her once, and she saves him 3 times.
Yeah.
She's clearly the better fighter.
She's clearly the better sibling. I shouldn't say that. There's no such thing as a good sibling.
True.
Sorry, siblings of our viewership. Don't worry, though. I know none of you are my sibling, because my siblings aren't good siblings. Anyways, moving on. This isn't Peter's therapy hour. This is just Peter talks a lot and forces other people to listen to him, including you guys.
Save it for the soul-devouring beast, Peter.
You're right. That'll be my motivation to really defeat the soul-devouring beast. And by defeat, I mean allow it to take my soul, because then the pain will go away. Goes to save his sister, realizing his sister runs a criminal organization and is honestly like kind of a cool lady. She seems to be doing pretty well for herself, and also does not like Shang-Chi, which is kind of justified based on the life that she had. Because, as we mentioned, when their mother died, so she lost her mother in the form that her mother died. And then, as we discussed, her father decided to raise Shang to be an assassin and decided to stop raising her entirely. So she kind of lost her father in that experience. And then Shang decided to flee because he didn't want to be raised to be an assassin, and told her he would come back for her, and then just fucking didn't. Which, I mean, like, kind of shitty, but also, as discussed, he was like 15 at the time, and you can't really expect 15-year-olds to be like decent people.
The thing I'm still trying to figure out is how he got into a school.
I mean, he was trained as an assassin, and that's like all you really need to be able to get into high school.
I was saying, there's a lot of steps in there that I'm aware of that I'm not sure he could have done by himself.
He learned a lot of languages. He probably learned a lot of other skills, like creating false documents and such.
I like getting hit
and
with
what have
sticks
and
in the
not.
snow.
And like bureaucratics, like just how to cut through bureaucratic red tape. Like that's probably one of the skills he was trained in. Diplomacy. That seems like something that Wenwu would take the time to train him in. Sorry, cool guy McBad Dad.
There we go. It keeps changing, but I like it.
I don't even remember what I called him the first time. I just know it's cool guy McSomething, and the something changes depending on how I feel about Wenwu in that moment.
That's fair.
So anyways, yeah, Shang-Chi used his assassin skills to get into high school and change his name from Shang-Chi to Shaun, which he kind of gets made fun of by Katie.
He's like, yeah, you're going into hiding, so you change your name from Shang-Chi to Shaun. Not much of a change there.
I mean, the movie does kind of pay off the fact that his father knew where he was the whole time and just decided, I'm going to give him a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave you some years to be free to yourself, and look what you did with it. You're a fucking valet. Time to come back.
He tried to hide his identity by going to school and changing his name to Shaun. I think he needs the break.
Yeah. Clearly, he's a little bit burnt out. Let's just give him a couple years to himself. Let him figure himself out.
Actually, that's probably, now that I think about it, maybe his father did actually register him in the school when he found out what he was doing. So when he was trying, like, I'm going to this school now. I am Shaun. It's like, yeah, we already know. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he like shows up on the first day. He's like, hi, I'm a student here. My dad probably sent the paperwork, but it might have gotten lost in the mail. And they're like, no, it arrived. He's like, what? Oh, yeah, all right, cool. I'm registered in this school.
Man,
can't believe my plan
so good.
worked. Yeah. So clearly, cool guy McRad Dad registered him in classes, and Shaun just thought he got away with it. You know what? I like this idea of just like he was watching from the scenes and like from the shadows, and every time Shaun thought he was like being a genius and getting away with stuff, it was just Wenwu cleaning up his mistakes behind him.
Because despite the fact that he's like quote unquote the villain and a bad guy, he still cares about his family.
Yeah,
to an extent.
Like,
anyway.
well, I'll have to give the command that my assassins can't kill him, so go ahead and try.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that line is not super cool, but he honestly does seem like a genuinely caring father. In a couple scenes, like he's not the best father, but it doesn't seem entirely out of the question that he cares about his kids. Like he genuinely does seem to care about them, even if he's not great at being a father.
Yeah. It's like his family is important to him. He just can't look at his daughter because his daughter reminds him of his dead wife.
Also, he is being subtly manipulated by a being from another dimension which eats souls.
Or whatever his name is. Just otherworld dweller in darkness.
Dweller in darkness. Fucking thank you. Jesus, now I can stop referring to it as a being from another dimension that eats souls.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we never get an official name for it, just what the people of the area call it.
Yeah. So anyways, busboy goes to his sister's fighting arena.
Yeah, where we get the best scene of like, well, they're riding into the arena on the elevator, and he signs a data pad that the guy who's working there hands him. unwittingly signing himself up to participate in one of the underground fights.
And we get the classic Marvel move of making their male star take off their shirt.
Yep. It's like, hey, shirtless.
Well, they also do call it out, which I do enjoy. What
Yeah.
happened to your shirt?
I don't
But,
know. They took it off.
But no, we get the best scene of like, oh, we're fighting in one of those cages and just off to the side, like grungy little cages. Oh, no. We've got the big important fights up there. Points up to a ring where good old Master Wong is fighting giant fish guy.
Abomination from the first Hulk movie.
Yeah, he's actually an
Yes.
established character in fucking the Marvel MCU. It's just he's an established character that most people forgot about.
But also he's friends with Wong, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Because we find out like they do mock fights. They're not actually fighting each other.
Yeah. I do enjoy how, like, after the fight, it's very clear that, like, they're, like, workshopping it together. And Wong's just like, I wouldn't have to kick your ass if you learned to manage your strength. That's why I made you punch yourself. It's like, oh, so clearly that was all planned. I like it. So yeah, we see that scene. Another fun little detail is in one of the side fights. Another reference to Iron Man 3 happens that we see one of the fighters in one of the side fights is one of the extremis people with like the body glowing stuff.
Yeah, one of the extremis soldiers apparently lived.
Oh.
Yeah. It's one of multiple references to Iron Man 3. That was clearly the movie that they tried to have the most connections with, both overt in certain characters and also subtle background details that you could see. So anyways, Wong fights the champion of the ring, who also happens to be his sister, who also happens to be the owner of the Underground Fighting League. Which are like, I feel like part of the point, I guess not for her, because she's an untrained assassin in the sense that she wasn't trained by anyone except for herself. But for most people, owning a fighting league kind of means you no longer have to fight in the fighting league, but I guess for someone who's been told their entire life that you're a girl, you're not allowed to fight in our fighting ring, owning the fighting ring means you now get to fight in the fighting ring, so I guess girl power.
I mean, it
Go
also
for it.
sounds like she's the champion of the ring too, like undefeated.
Yeah,
Champion, and also it's a good way for her to practice because strong people coming in to test their might in this underground fighting ring, who's better to practice against?
oh yeah, I'm all for it. I'm just saying, like, if I was running a underground organization, I also would not be putting my life on the line every day by also being one of the combatants. The fight is a little bit one-sided in that Shang-Chi isn't fighting at all, and he's just getting beat up by his sister.
He's like half-heartedly defending himself, but just trying to talk to her.
Yep. He then explains to her that cool guy McDad is coming after them. This is after the fight, obviously, when they have their reconciliation. And she explains that 6 days turned into 6 weeks, turned into 6 months, turned into never coming back ever because he doesn't really love her. So obviously she is unhappy with him, and as they're discussing how unhappy she is with him, it is discovered that the Ten Rings have already invaded them and are coming for her amulet.
Because Shang-Chi is like, well, if you didn't want to see me, then why did you send me this postcard? I didn't send you a postcard. He hands her the postcard, and they're like, what?
I do enjoy how that is never fucking explained. Like, it's not shown that, like, the dad sent it to, like, try and get them in the same place, because why would the dad send that? It's never, like, suggested that someone else sent it to try and get them to reconcile. Like,
I think the idea was that he wanted them both in the same place, so you don't have to make a one trip.
I suppose.
That's the
but
most
then he does still make 2 trips when they don't get together.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most logical explanation for how they could run it, or just write the movie with him traveling to meet his sister. Because, like, you got to admit, the way it turned out makes for a more interesting, more enjoyable experience than if he were, say, kidnapped back in San Francisco, and then all of a sudden his sister also showed up at the complex.
Yeah, and we get that awesome bamboo like construction rafter fight.
Yeah, I definitely think this is the way to do it. I'm just saying they never like fully addressed where the postcard came from. To the point like there was the mid scene where we get the reveal that cool guy McFather parental figure is under the assumption that their mother is still alive and she's been trapped in Ta Lo, and she's been like whispering to him in the night to tell him to come rescue her. Like when they had that reveal, part of me thought that like that was true, and the postcard actually came from the mother trying to reconcile the two kids. And then I realized that that was foolish because Shang-Chi repeatedly said that that was a foolish thing to believe in. And I was like, well, if anyone's right, it's the guy with the cool abs, so I'm going to believe in him. Because the dad didn't take his shirt off at that point, so I didn't get to know if he had cool abs and should be trusted, therefore.
Yeah, I partially believed it, but I was mostly skeptical about it. But what made that all the more interesting was the fact that it really hammered home how much Mr. Bad Guy, Mick Ringison, actually cared about his wife and would do anything, even use his whole underground illegal crime syndicate to try to save her.
Also, there's a problem here I want to point out when he starts talking about the Ten Rings and how they operate and how they're a secret organization that controls everything. We're now up to 3 secret organizations that are controlling everything, apparently.
Yep.
Yeah, they have like a weekly brunch or something just to discuss who has to be out of what town so no one's stepping on anyone's toes.
When we were first introduced to the MCU, there were no secret organizations. It was just a couple drunk billionaires playing around with tech. We then get informed that actually S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of not so much controlling the world, but like protecting the free world from the shadows, and not many people are aware of exactly what they do, but they're there. And then later on, we're revealed to the fact that Hydra is actually a secret organization within S.H.I.E.L.D. that's ruling the world. And then we're told that the Widows are secretly controlling the world from the shadows. And then we're told that the Ten Rings are secretly controlling the world from the shadows. I like to believe that all 3 of them believe this to be true and are also aware of the other 2 organizations. Like Hydra is aware of the existence of both the Ten Rings and the Widows and thinks they're manipulating the Ten Rings and the Widows. And the Widows are aware of both the Ten Rings and Hydra and think they're manipulating those 2. And the Ten Rings is aware of the other 2 and thinks they're manipulating them as well. I like to believe that everyone just believes they're in control when really no one is. But to be fair, that's honestly the point we're building to. Like, if we find out there's another secret organization that's running the world from the shadows, if they don't at least address the other secret organizations running the world from the shadows, then it really is just no one's running the world from the shadows because everyone just thinks they're running the world from the shadows.
We do have another secret organization, the TVA.
I guess that's true. The TVA is running everything from the shadows.
To be fair, the TVA were running things from the shadows. From what it looks like,
Yep.
the TVA is no longer running shit. Or at least...
They haven't started yet.
This is the annoying thing about the TVA.
For everything, behind everyone.
The annoying thing about the TVA is I can't use chronology, but I'm going to use chronology. I think at this point in the MCU, the TVA probably is still controlling everything from the shadows, and I don't think they will stop controlling things from the shadows until we get to whatchamacallit, Spider-Man. Between No Way Home, that one. I think that is the point when the TVA fully loses control, because that's the first time we get like confirmation of the multiverse. So I think that's the point when the TVA stops having control of everything, chronologically speaking, which is weird because chronology doesn't make sense in the TVA. Thank you, Marvel, for making this a difficult conversation to have. Also, to continue on the tangent a little bit further, I think the one organization that has to have known about the other secret organizations is the TVA. There's no way they were controlling the Sacred Timeline without knowing about the existence of the other secret organizations. But yes, to bring it back to where we were in the movie, bamboo Skywalker fight. Not Skywalker. Scaffolding. Bamboo scaffolding fight is where we were in the movie.
Though I wouldn't mind seeing a bamboo Skywalker fight.
I don't even. Is that just like people pretending to do a Jedi fight, except instead of lightsabers, they're just holding sticks of bamboo? Is that what that is?
Or maybe it's Luke Skywalker made out of bamboo. Who knows? It just sounds delightful.
It's like the new Groot, except it's not actually a living being. It's just a dummy made out of bamboo that everyone refers to as Luke Skywalker, and no one addresses. Like like he. Oh, they just Oh God, we're going on another tangent. I can feel it already. So I'm gonna stop myself. But I want to go on this tangent. All right. So, bamboo scaffolding fight. I found this to be like. So one of the things to talk about with this movie is the incredible fucking fight choreography going on in these movies, because it is spectacular. A lot of earlier Marvel films kind of got a little bit like, it wasn't as bad as, say, the Bourne series, but they did get a little bit ragged on for like the jump cuts during fights to make it hard to follow exactly what's going on. I felt like this movie in particular had really good choreography and really made the fight scenes enjoyable to watch, at least from my perspective. So yeah, this bamboo fight scene in particular was really enjoyable to me, of watching them fight people on the bamboo and watching Shang-Chi get a little bit overwhelmed by all the assassins, and then seeing Katie in danger as she's about to fall to her death, and him like fighting better now and getting through that fight and rescuing her.
And they're fighting
he
on their
doesn't
own
rescue
because,
her, actually.
Yeah, they're fighting on their own because everyone's escaping the club because the evil dudes led by Razor Fist are coming in. And obviously that's who they're fighting right now. And they're fighting alone because Shang-Chi's sister escaped on her own, left them behind.
And she doubles back and saves Katie because Shang-Chi's incapable. I mean, he's capable. He just didn't.
He's not capable enough. For now.
Yeah, so that fight scene happens. We then have Shang-Chi's sister's amulet get stolen by a character who I don't think is ever given a name, but
it's Death Dealer.
Death Dealer. The
Person in the
masked
mask.
assassin who is in charge of training, or who seemed to be in charge of training Shang when he was younger. It actually seems like he might have been in charge of training all of the Ten Rings, but he was, in particular, we see him training Shang-Chi.
And he goes out like a bitch.
He actually fights pretty capable, but yeah, he is definitely defeated. But Shang-Chi doesn't actually win because, in addition to Masked Assassin and Razor Fist, there's one other important character in this scene who helps ensure that the Ten Rings win, and that's the wielder of the Ten Rings, Rad Dad McCool Guy. His name is very inconsistent, and I apologize for that. I'll figure out what it is by the end of this podcast, maybe. So he shows up. This is when the two children are officially kidnapped and brought back to the compound for the most awkward family dinner of all time. But not the most awkward. I've had more awkward family dinners. You gotta really like emphasize with Katie here, though, because it's like very clearly one of those dinners where like the family has been fighting, but like one of the kids' best friend was invited to dinner before the family started fighting, and now they're just stuck at a dinner table with a dad who's being very passive aggressive to his kids.
Yeah, and they're the outsider and have no room to talk whatsoever.
But they like managed to like continue talking because, I mean, they cast Awkwafina. You can't really cast Awkwafina and then expect her to sit silently on the side of a scene.
True.
So this is where we get the reveal that Rad Guy McCool Dad, Cool Guy McRad Dad. Is that what I was calling him initially?
You just go with what makes sense to you.
Mr. McDad explains that he believes that the mother's still alive and has been calling him from Ta-Lo, and he intends to invade Ta-Lo. And they tell him that he's crazy, and he shows that the amulets he stole from them show the way into Ta-Lo, and that the way will be open in a couple days' times, and it's only open one day a year. And that's when he'll walk his entire army in and defeat Ta Lo and rescue his beloved wife.
From Magical Gate for some reason.
Yeah, from a magical gate that she is trapped behind. This is obviously a great plan that everyone's immediately on board with, except for, the characters we're following, such as Shang-Chi, Xialing, I think was his sister's name.
Yep.
And Katie are not on board with this plan, but everyone else is, which is unfortunate because they're the only three we actually care about.
You know who else isn't? Morris and Trevor.
Yes. So this is where we get. So also during this dinner is when fucking Wenwu McDad. I'm sad now. When he reveals that he's so famous around the world that when an American wanted to perform terrorist acts, he stole his own name. He didn't steal his name. He stole the name of the Ten Rings, and then pretended to be the leader and called himself Mandarin. That's when he reveals that he's aware of all that happening, and he was not happy with the actor who portrayed him as a chicken dish, which I guess is fair. I'd be upset if someone used my name to try and take over the world, except instead of actually using my name, they just went by beef and broccoli or something. No, I take it back. That'd be sick. I'd be super into it if someone pretended to be me, called themselves beef and broccoli Tide Pod, and tried to take over the world. You're right. Tide Pod was a necessary addition to the name, Matt. Beef and broccoli Tide Pod. Oh fuck! I'm gonna look into legally changing my name to Beef and
The
Broccoli
most
Tide
menacing.
Pod.
I mean, there was a guy back in the day who changed his name to .com guy.
Yeah, I can probably get away with it. Beef and broccoli Tide Pod. Fuck. You're too good at this, Matt. You're a menace to society. So he locks his children into underground dungeon type area, I guess, until he goes to Ta Lo, because he knows that once he has the mother back, they'll realize that he was right all along, or his name's not cool guy McAlways right. So he locks them in the dungeon, and that's where they meet Trevor Slattery, the actor who portrayed the Mandarin in Iron Man 3.
The other best character in this movie.
Yes, the other best character being Maurice, you're right.
My favorite thing with Trevor's character, though, is when he's like trying to give that rousing speech about why he became an actor, and he's like, and it's like, how did they get those monkeys to ride those horses? But then I realized they weren't riding the horses; they were acting.
Yeah,
they were acting like riding the horses, and I still can't get my mind around it. It's boggling.
Yeah, and like to the point where like Shang-Chi calls him out on it, and he's like, wait, so you got into acting because you didn't realize the apes were real? And then Trevor Slattery adds an amendment to his sentence. He's like, really? Acting? Yeah, no, I couldn't believe it. So that's why I became an actor. It's like, oh, he still doesn't realize that the apes weren't actually apes. Okay, yeah, that's cool. So yes, they break out, they steal Razor Fist's car. I laugh in the audience, realizing that his name is Razor Fist. And then we go to the mystical forest of bamboo that protects Ta Lo.
But also his little pet, Trevor's pet, little
Maurice.
The little headless, four-winged.
Matt, please don't call attention to that. He's very bashful about the fact that he doesn't have a face.
I'm sorry, but yeah. Little four-winged bear thing.
Yep.
Which is our first look at a mystical creature from this supposed Ta Lo place.
What I find
Trevor
fascinating,
is surprised that they can see him, and because he thought he was just going insane.
Yeah, what I find fascinating about Morris, though, is supposedly the reason that he's in the compound at all is the Ten Rings discovered him in a forest and thought like this is a sign of Ta Lo. So they captured him, but then like rather than keeping this mystical creature anywhere on display, they immediately threw it into the dungeon and forgot about it, which is like worse than a zoo. It's like if you wanted to open a zoo, but you never let anyone walk through your zoo. It's like you just put animals in a zoo for the purpose of having them there and not for like actually having any entertainment gained out of having them there.
To be fair, Trevor was the only one who could understand Morris, so I don't think
Yeah,
they
for
understood that he was
what?
of any use.
Yeah, for
Oh, I
whatever
don't.
reason, it's like I have no idea why he can understand Morris. Like all I know is that he was in the dungeon because they were going to kill him, but they found him funny, so they didn't.
Yeah, because he goes into Macbeth when he's about to die.
Yep.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm not claiming that they should have realized that Morris was of use. I'm just saying, like, it's a weird concept to go out and capture a mystical creature and then immediately put it in your basement and lock the door and never walk down there. That's what I'm taking issue
Yeah.
with.
Could have kept it as a pet, at least.
Yeah, like if fucking Morris was just like rolling around, like if while they were having their dinner in like the background, you just saw Morris rolling around on the ground, like in the background, I would be immediately on board with them capturing Morris. It's just the idea that they captured him, threw him in the dungeon, and then just locked the key and forgot about it.
To be fair,
Locked the key, locked the door.
we lose a really good joke of when Morris first gets introduced, if that's the case, where it comes around the corner and then they freak out. And then
Yeah.
Trevor's like, oh, you can see it. Oh, thank God. I thought he was in my head.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is a good point. Morris explains that he wants them to take him back to Talo, and he can get them into Talo before the gate opens because there's another path that he can navigate, and there's a 90% chance that they'll survive. And by 90, he means 19. And you know what? They're into it.
Yeah. And we should probably also mention that Talo is guarded by this mystical bamboo forest maze, which only opens up, as we mentioned, this one time a year, unless you know the correct path to go through and when and where to enter it. Which
Morris
knows.
does.
Yeah. So he guides them in before Mr. Bad Dude, Mr. Bad Dad, can get in there.
Oh no, now he's a bad dad.
The one thing he's not is a bad dad. He's not a good dad, but I wouldn't call him a bad dad. I'd call him a cool guy is a dad. This is getting worse. I'm sorry. So they get to Talo. They're immediately turned away from Talo until their aunt shows up, and she's like, "Wait, these kids are my nieces and nephews, and also that my nieces and nephew's best friend, and also an actor that my nieces and nephew recently met and befriended, and also their mystical pet, who's actually from here. So we definitely shouldn't turn that one away." So they get
that's Trevor from Iron Man 3.
Oh no, the Mandarin! Like if someone referred to him as the Mandarin in that scene, that also would have been fucking great.
That's true.
I liked how they were just introducing themselves, and then Trevor jumps out of the car and he's like, "And I'm here too. I'm just an entertainer. Don't mind me."
Yeah.
Or when he fakes his death in the final fight, so he's just laying there.
It's like
Morris
almost
comes
an
up to
emotional
see
scene
his
because
corpse.
Morris runs over, sees him collapse, and starts like nudging him to like try and resuscitate him, and you think, oh no, Trevor Slattery's dead, and Morris is having a tough time dealing with
He
it.
died off screen, and we didn't even get to see it.
And then he like leads up a little bit and is like, I'm not actually dead, I'm acting, now play along. And then he goes back to being collapsed.
And then Morris flips over onto his back.
Yeah.
And then Trevor just looks at him. I was like, wow, that's a good job.
Which, I mean, solid plan. I don't think it works out for them because, once again, these are soul-devouring monsters, and I don't think they're really, like, checking for people who are lying on the ground. I think they're just checking for souls, which means they probably would notice that Trevor Slattery is still alive. Except, wait, nope, now that I think about it, Trevor Slattery probably just doesn't have a soul. All right, we're good. Not that he's, like, a bad guy. I just assume he doesn't have a soul. That's all. So... Why is my brain...
Yeah, when they get to the village, they're taken to, like, their mother's memorial, and they're told about, like, the purpose of why they're guarding the village, and the evil of the dweller in the darkness behind the mountain, in the mountain. And how their father seems to have been tricked by the dweller in the darkness into thinking that their mother is alive and imprisoned there.
Because the dweller knows that the rings are one of the few things that could open the gate.
Yes. So he gave the wielder of the rings a good old ring on the ring telephone. He was like,
Banana
yo,
phone?
homie. Ring, 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 ring. Banana phone. Yeah, calls him up. It's like, yo, I'm your wife. Not really, but I am just going to pretend to be your wife and be like, yo, can you get me out of here?
It's
I'm
weird that he would agree to that.
imprisoned."
Yeah, it's weird that the Dweller in Darkness said, "Yo, I'm your wife, not really, but let's just pretend." And Wenwu, cool guy, husband, was immediately on board with that plan.
It just shows
His
how
family's
emotionally crushed he
important.
was by his wife being dead.
Yeah.
You don't
He's like-
turn your back on family.
I like the idea of like Dweller in Darkness being very open about the fact that he's not actually Wenwu's wife, only for Wenwu to be like, "Yeah, but as long as we're pretending, let's just not stop pretending. I'll get you out, but then you have to continue pretending to be my wife." And like the Dweller in Darkness got a little bit uncomfortable, but Wenwu had already like started opening the gate, and the Dweller's like, I don't want to be your wife though." He's like, "But the gate's opening. You're my wife now."
Don't talk
So that's what
nonsense,
happened.
dear.
So that's pretty much what happens.
Gotta pick the kids up from school.
Oh, fuck that. So obviously they are explained that whole concept, and they're also given some beautiful dragon scale armor because all the weapons and armor in this area, well, not all the armor, all the weapons are made out of dragon scales, and it kind of seems like they're the only ones who actually have dragon scale armor. Everyone else just seems to kind of be wearing robes for the most part.
We're also told that it was a dragon that sealed the Dweller in Darkness in the mountain.
Yeah, the great
Sealed the gateway.
the Great Protector
Yes.
is how they refer to him. Yeah, and he helped seal the gate the last time. Otherwise, the Dweller in Darkness would have destroyed them long ago. And they're also told that these weapons are the only ones that actually work against these soul-eating monsters from another dimension.
And we get the classic scene to reference that later on too, when they're fighting the Ten Rings, and it's like, we have to work together to stop this thing. It's like, we don't need your help, and it kills, I believe, a Death Dealer, and he goes out like a bitch. And he's like, I think we should work together, and then he cuts off the sword from his hand, and then
Good
puts
old
another
Razor
one on.
Fist. He's like, yeah, we don't need you. We're gonna take you out, and we're gonna follow our leader. And then sees the action of the Soul Suckers. Like, on second thought, yeah, you've got a good plan.
Yeah, he picks up one of the like pole arms with like a dragon scale blade, breaks off the blade, and attaches it to his wrist where his Razor Fist used to be.
Well, it's still arguably a Razor Fist.
Yeah,
More powerful Razor Fist. He got an upgrade.
he got a side grade. Let's be honest. This one can fight soul-eating demons, but it isn't. It doesn't do fire damage anymore because it doesn't look like it's got the heated tip.
That's true.
So, like, if this were D&D, I don't know that it would actually be a better weapon. It'd just be a change of damage type. So, now that conversation happened, during this fight, it's also revealed that, well, Shang-Chi asked his aunt how his mother managed to beat their father because she was the only one who has ever beaten their father in a fight. Everyone else he has just kind of walked past, not having to worry too much. And she explains that her mother really knew who she was, so she didn't have to worry about holding anything back. And that's what Shang-Chi needs to do. He needs to accept both the good and the bad inside of him.
You see, I'm positive it's that his mother gave him the fuck me eyes when they first met, and he couldn't beat her.
That's absolutely what happened. Is fucking cool guy wants to take over the world, shows up at Ta Lo, and he's like, I am going to invade Ta Lo. And she's like, no, you're not. I'm going to fight you to stop you. And then they start fighting, and the entire time they're fighting, the like sexual tension is like so thick that you would need a razor fist to cut through it. A regular knife wouldn't do it.
Oh my god! And that just makes one of the upcoming scenes all that much better.
Well, I was also going to say, like, it makes it very awkward
when Shang-Chi drops down in front of the gate to fight off his father, he starts off the fight exactly like his father and mother did, and he gives his father that look.
I mean,
the father's like, oh, hell no, and then punches him away.
To be fair, it would be a very awkward scene if Aunt Nam was like, okay, how did someone beat my father? Like, how did she beat my father? It's like, well, first, you gotta seduce your father.
Well, like, it does kind of explain Wenwu's immediate, like, visceral reaction to Shang-Chi jumping in front of him. Like, Shang-Chi jumps in front of him, does, like, the same, like, facial expression, and like cool guy doesn't want to be that dad is very clearly like, no, stop giving me the fuck me eyes. We're fighting now. This is a fight. This is no more fuck me eyes. This is not what this is. Which, you know what? Kudos to him for setting some boundaries with his kids.
Yeah.
That's
a line that must not be crossed.
So, yeah, it's explained that he has to really know himself. But, like, I guess it could still be true, and it's just the mom really knowing herself meant she just really knew she wanted to have sex with him, and that's how that worked out. But yeah, Shang-Chi seems to take this as, I need to accept both the good and the bad, which means I have to accept all the bad and ignore all the good. So I am just the assassin I was trained to be, and I will do what I was trained to do, and I will kill my father. Which, I mean, he's accepting half of himself there, so he's halfway towards beating his father.
Control half of the rings at the beginning, or at the start of the
fight. At this point, he's not controlling any of the rings.
Well, not yet.
Yeah, and he gets knocked into the lake by his dad.
Yeah, he gets knocked out of the ring.
Yeah, he gets knocked into the lake by his dad. And as he's drowning, that's when he starts to remember the good in him and all the things his mother told him, and about how he has the heart of the dragon. And then he sees a dragon and rides the dragon to save the day. He
also remembered the the forms that his mother taught him. He's like, oh, I'll use these to fight against the rings.
Yep, and so he fights his dad. They're relatively evenly matched. Like he's handling his own, and he's probably going to beat his dad, but he also has accepted that he's not a killer and he's not going to kill his dad. So he manages to actually take all the rings over the course of the fight, and he starts doing the Kamehameha, and then he stops because he doesn't want to kill his dad. And just when he stops, the Dweller in Darkness busts through the gate and shows up in the world. And he makes it clear that he wants to eat some souls, and those two are the closest to him. In fact, it looks like he's going to eat Shang-Chi, which would be terrible, as everyone can tell.
Yeah, the movie would end right there.
I would love it if that's how one of the Marvel movies ended. Is they get to the final climactic scene, and then the bad guy just kills the good guy and smash cut to credits.
I mean, that's what happened in Infinity War. That's literally what happened in Infinity War.
Oh, you're right. That is just Infinity War that I'm referencing. My bad. Oh, fuck. They did do that. They did have the balls to do that thing.
Yeah, but then they had
also, I don't know why I said I loved it. That was a very emotionally traumatic moment for me. So, yeah, he looks like he's going to take Shang-Chi. Looks like it would be a bad time. And then Wenwu, cool guy, sacrificing dad, takes the rings back, pushes Shang-Chi out of the way, takes his place, gets his soul sucked, and his last act, while he still has his soul, is to fully bequeath the rings onto Shang. And this is when the climax starts. Yeah. Big old fight with the Dweller in Darkness.
Bye-bye blue rings, hello golden rings.
I don't know why I said this is when the climax started. The climax started like when the 10 rings started fighting.
Yeah, this is the giant CG dragon fight that also has featuring Shang-Chi and his sister.
Yes.
Yeah, it's between the
one
Great
arrow
Protector
from Katie.
And the Dweller in Darkness. In fact, Katie
wasn't
puts
there,
in fucking work in the fight. Yeah, they would have lost if it wasn't for Katie, who learned how to fire an arrow like the day before and is already fucking killing it. And by it, I mean the Dweller in Darkness. It's not like full-on murder, but she's doing well in the fight.
Yeah, the full-on murder was Shang-Chi.
Hawkeye.
I think that's the Hawkeye series, and that's Kate Bishop, but sure, why not?
Because Katie says that she doesn't try anything because she doesn't want to disappoint herself and doesn't want to disappoint everyone else around her. But then she finds out that she's actually quite good at the bow and arrow.
Well, I think the implication is that she could be good at anything, because the explicit line that she's told is, if you don't aim at anything, you'll never hit your target. And it's just like, it kind of seemed like it was a call out to all the people who are lost in their lives, fucking do something, and that's when you'll actually start being able to do something. Is essentially what that line was the reason that she's not great at anything is because she's never actually applied herself and tried to be great at anything.
Also, I believe the character played by Awkwafina is not actually an MCU character at all.
Well, I mean, she's an MCU character. She's just not.
Oh, sorry,
Marvel
a
character.
Marvel
Marvel.
character. I meant, yeah.
Yeah. That I believe is true. I think she was created for this. I think it was literally just they wanted Asian actors, obviously, because this movie kind of celebrates a lot of Asian heritage. Not really celebrates, but there hasn't been a lot of representation in the MCU, so they wanted to do a movie that focused a lot on people of Asian descent. And Awkwafina is a very famous person of Asian descent. So it kind of made sense to put her in the movie. And if you're going to put her in the movie, you kind of have to write a character around her. And like she fit really well. Like she made sense in the movie. But yes, it would be hard to see her playing an established character in Marvel rather than just establishing a new character to play her.
Yeah.
Or to be played by
Mhm.
her. So yes, she fires an arrow, hits the fucking Dweller in Darkness right in the jugular.
Right when the Dweller in Darkness is chowing down on the soul of the dragon,
Yeah,
of the Great Protector.
it's explicitly said that if he manages to eat the Great Protector's soul, our dimension is lost. There's no coming back from that. So it's going to be a bad time. And then she saves the Great Protector, and then Shang-Chi delivers the finishing blow to the Dweller in Darkness by actually accomplishing the Kamehameha he was threatening to use on his father.
Yeah, he blows it to
Yes.
pieces.
Not even blowing it to pieces. He blows it up so aggressively that all of the like smaller soul-eating monsters are also destroyed in the explosion, which is good, I guess.
I thought of it more of like, you defeat the hive mind, kind of like the first Avengers movie.
Oh, fair. You destroyed the big thing, and all the small things just kind of die.
Yeah.
As a result, that
Mhm.
that also makes sense. And so
Because the small one's purpose was obviously to feed the big one.
yes. And that's kind of the end of the movie proper. There's also a post-credit scene. Oh, I guess there's a slight setup to the post-credit scene in that just before the credits, Shang-Chi and
Amazing
Katie.
payoff to the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. So in the beginning of the movie, they're having dinner with one of their friends from high school, and they're explaining what their life is. Well, not even explaining what their life was like. Explaining the fun shenanigans they got into in high school, and then their friend from high school has a line about how they need to do something because Katie is I forget what quality she describes to Katie, but she does explain that Shang knows 4 languages, and it's crazy how he hasn't found a way to do something with that, which is a weird sentiment to share because knowing 4 languages is not exactly an employable skill. But that's fair. And then
Also
in
implied
this,
that he's incredibly intelligent. Also,
yeah,
Also, knowing multiple languages is actually a very employable skill. Fun fact: people that know multiple languages actually have a higher rate of being hired.
yep.
that's fair. I misspoke. I'm just saying it. There are other qualities to ascribe to him. Just saying that the fact that he knows 4 languages is the most impressive thing that she could think of.
If anything, she should have pointed out the fact that he's now known as Busboy on apparently a global scale and could monetize that.
I believe in the first scene, it's actually before the busboy shenanigans because he goes from busboy straight to flying to Macau to meet up with his sister.
Oh, that's fair.
But yeah, so in the final scene, they're back to having drinks with their friend from high school, except now they're explaining how they saved the entire dimension from the Dweller in Darkness. And she's like,
And
all
then their
right, I
friends
get
are
it.
like, You're trying to make fun of us for what we said last time, but do you really think stringing this fantastic, bizarre tale of all this fantasy nonsense is going to help solve anything? It's not going to fix the
You
issue
think
that you
this
guys are not
fantasy
responsible.
You think this fantasy bullshit exists in a world where half of everyone disappeared for 5 years and an
Yep.
alien showed up?
Meanwhile, while she's giving her rant, there's a mystic portal appearing behind them.
And then Wong walks out, and it's just like, Shang-Chi? Is there a Shang-Chi in this restaurant? Which was good, but I would have enjoyed the movie 1,000 times better if he walked out and he was like, Busboy! Is Busboy in the restaurant? That would have been very amusing to me. But it didn't happen, and that's okay. sometimes our dreams don't come true.
But yeah, the entire restaurant, including their friends, just goes silent and just watch with gaping jaws. Like, our friends just got called through a magical portal. What if they were telling the truth?
And then we cut to credits, and then the post-credit / mid-credit scene is Wong, Katie, and Shang-Chi sitting together discussing the rings, while over those like screen projector conferencing systems that we saw in Endgame, we also see Bruce Banner and Captain Marvel
Who
also
is
discussing
immediately
the
called
rings.
away on important business yet again.
Yeah, she makes it very clear that while most of the MCU is responsible for protecting Earth, she's responsible for protecting everywhere else, and she's very busy all the time. A very interesting detail here is that it's Bruce Banner and not the Professor or Professor Hulk or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
He is reverted back to being Bruce Banner. We do see that his arm is still in a sling, so clearly he's still, presumably he's still suffering from the effects of the snap that he performed, and maybe that's why he's no longer in Hulk form. But it's unclear exactly what's going on there. For a moment, when I was leaving the theater, I happened to overhear other people discussing it. Like, man, Bruce Banner broke his arm. And it's like, I don't think that's it, because I feel like the Hulk would stop that from happening. And also, we did very recently see extreme trauma happen to the Hulk's arm. So I assume that's actually what happened there.
Yeah, I think they're just hinting at, because the next time we're going to see the Hulk is going to be in She-Hulk. That we know of anyways. So I think they were setting up that, and looks like probably the Captain Marvel. But I think the big point of them being here is so that they could both identify that they had no fucking clue what the rings were, because like, it's not alien, and he's like, it's not from Earth.
Yeah,
And they are ancient.
Yeah, so we get comments from the three experts in the room. Wong explains that it's not a magical artifact in any of the Sanctum Sanctorum's records.
And when he used them back in Tallow, they could feel the energy of them all the way back in Carmartage.
Yeah.
So that power rippled.
Carol Danvers explains it's not an alien artifact that she's aware of. And Bruce Banner explains that it's not vibranium or anything like that, any material that they've experienced on Earth before. So it's essentially what they're saying is it's none of the big three, as we remember from
Not robots,
Mephisto
not
and Winter
sorcerers,
Mephisto.
not aliens.
Yeah, it's not the big three, so it's not wizards, robots, or aliens. I mean, it's probably a little bit of all three, but it's not any of the three that we've seen before.
Advanced technology from spacefaring wizard dragons.
Yeah.
Most likely.
That is presumably the reveal we're going to get, but as we've already stated, the MCU does like to do things a little bit differently from the comics, partially to adapt it better to screen, and also partially just because then it keeps the viewers on their feet. Because if it's exactly like it was in the comics, then all of their plot points would be ruined by fans of the comics before it got to the screen.
Well,
so
since we've actually kind of just gone through all the story here, some speculation on the concept of the rings and what that beacon is going to, that I thought might be worth mentioning.
Yeah.
So someone pointed out that the thing that Wenwu was experiencing with his wife talking to him kind of is eerily close to the end credit scene from Scarlet Witch, with her children calling out to her.
Mephisto.
Well, no, not necessarily Mephisto specifically, but the idea is that both this movie and Scarlet Witch, WandaVision specifically, we're setting up the Doctor Strange movie, and whatever this thing is that's in the other dimension is going to be the villain of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And it's trying to get someone who's powerful enough to break it out of this dimension. So Shang-Chi's gauntlets are 10 rings. Wanda's just hex magic specifically. So we might see powerful characters being kind of manipulated by this thing moving forward, and that could be what leads them to Avengers 5. Because it is even possible that Avengers 5 might be sooner than we think, but they just haven't announced it because they don't want to reveal anything with the trailer or the title.
Yeah, similar to how while they announced Infinity War Part 2, they didn't give a full announcement of Endgame until they were comfortable, because they knew the name Endgame might give things away.
Exactly. So the idea is that whatever this thing in the other dimension is, that's where the beacon's going to, and it's kind of like an alert that like someone that's powerful enough is in this dimension.
Yeah. One of the other theories I heard was so the whole idea behind Fin Fang Foom and his race is that the reason that these ancient alien dragons from outer space came to Earth in the first place was their race is a whole fucking ordeal. They're alien dragons, and on their planet it's very peaceful. But like approximately half the aliens on their planet find that peace to be very boring, and so they run around conquering other planets just to like give themselves something to do. And so when they came to Earth, they were planning on setting it up to be conquered. And so one of the theories I was reading relates to how the rings were, yes, a thing that the alien dragons from outer space were going to use to help conquer, but were more so used to send a message back to Fin Fang Foom's original planet to inform them that the planet was now ready to be conquered once they had done all their like setup work in the first place. And so the idea being that when Shaun actually used the rings to their full power, he unintentionally also set off that beacon informing the alien dragons from outer space that the planet is now ready to be conquered.
Yeah, like Thor said in the first one, that using the Tesseract weapons would just let the rest of the universe know that humans are ready for a more advanced type of war.
Yeah. So for all we know, it could very well be that we're going to find out that what that beacon was I think we can all agree that the most likely explanation was it was informing a big bad, whether that big bad is going to be for Marvel and the Avengers as a whole, or for Shang-Chi specifically. It was informing a big bad that it's time to come to this planet and check it out, or this dimension. So most I like. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna, there's still the chance that this is just they were very vague about it because they still don't know yet.
Yeah, it's entirely likely, and in fact, that's the most likely explanation, is that they don't know what they're going to do with it, but it is highly likely that it will end up being that the beacon called to some dark force out in the universe, and that's going to be a problem for them in the future. It is highly unlikely, given the way the MCU and movies in general work, that what that beacon was calling out a friendly guy who's going to come hang out and drink some beers with them. I'm not saying that's not what it was. I'm just saying it's unlikely that that's what it was. Did we have anything else we wanted to discuss on the topic of the movie itself?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Keith, anything else to address about the movie?
No, the whole idea of like what was sending the beacon to is really the only thing I had.
Cool. One thing I wanted to add before we get into wrapping up was not so much about the movie itself, but about how the casting of the movie ended up happening, which was Simu Liu, the actor who played Shang-Chi, essentially had been wanting to be a superhero for a while. Not like actually be a superhero, but wanted to play a superhero. So the moment he heard that Shang-Chi got announced as a twinkle in the eye of a Marvel studio executive, he just tweeted out at Marvel, "So we doing this or what?" And apparently that got him cast as Shang-Chi. So, I mean, all the power to the guy.
So you're telling me I should just start tweeting at Marvel, "We doing this or what?" without any context?
Specifically, I think he also added hashtag Shang-Chi to his tweet. I'm not 100% certain of that. So specifically, anytime Marvel announces that they are planning on doing a movie and have put no work into casting or anything like that, you should tweet them, "So we doing this or what?" hashtag the movie that they just announced.
Okay.
Like hashtag
Scarlet Witch.
Hashtag I'm random extra. When and where should I be?
Hashtag Thanos 2.
So we doing this or what?
Boogaloo.
Hashtag Mephisto. That's the role of a lifetime
There we go.
right there. All right, cool. If that's it, did anyone quickly guess our topic on Instagram?
So we did actually get 2 guesses. So for the first one, it's from Tachi_Camargo, and she said, Kim's Convenience. So ha ha ha, very funny.
Very amusing, Tachi. But no, you're wrong. All right,
I
cool.
don't get it.
Kim's Convenience is the CBS sitcom that Simu Liu kind of got his big break on.
Okay.
Anything else?
We had one other guess, and this is from HanaJ_13, and they said Mothman.
Of course.
All right, cool. Also incorrect. In that case, have we received any emails or anything like that?
Emails, comments, questions, corrections.
Don't think we've received any new emails.
Nope.
All right, and then in that case, recommendations for nope, not recommendations, questions. Did we get answers to our last question? What was about sports that should be done in the style of Shaolin soccer? So Shaolin other sports. Did anyone give suggestions for Shaolin sports?
So Shaolin Sports, we do not have any suggestions. I guess the best ones have been done.
That's fair.
A little upsetting, but acceptable, I suppose.
Question about this episode. Did anyone think of a question we should ask the audience? I have one if no one can think of a
What
better
was your
one.
favorite nickname that Peter gave
That
Dad?
is the question I had thought of if no one could think of a better version of a question.
I mean, the
So yes, what
obvious
is the-
one is just who's getting called on that beacon.
Yes. Feel free to answer either of those questions. I will accept answers to either question. But yeah, if that's the case, recommendations. Matt, what are you recommending?
Yes, I recommend the newly released game that came out and I've been playing almost nonstop as much as I can in my free time. Tales of Arise.
Tell me about Tales of Arise.
Fantastic game, new JRPG in the Tales of series. Takes place in a world that has suffered through 300 years of tyranny, and you play as a band of main characters fighting back for liberation and freedom to try to save civilization who has been enslaved for all these many years. Absolutely gorgeous looking game with the visuals and the animations, and oh my god, the sound effects of the special abilities. Just mind-boggling every time.
Very nice. Keith, what's your recommendation?
So I'm actually going to recommend a movie called Redcliffe. So it's kind of like it's a John Woo movie that's like a very stylized action that is the Battle of Redcliffe from the Three Kingdoms period of China. And it also stars the actor that played Wen Wu in this movie.
Oh, Tony Leung?
Yep.
Nice. I am going to recommend The Tuxedo, the Jackie Chan movie, because it's
that
about
movie.
a guy who performs martial arts, but also does things that normal humans shouldn't be able to do, and also exists in takes place primarily in Western civilization. So it has some parallels to Shang-Chi and some perpendiculars as well.
Replace
It's
the
how I'm
rings
referring
with
to
the-
things that are very different.
Yeah, replace the rings with a high-tech tux. Man, I'm gonna watch that this weekend. Forgot about that movie.
Turns out my recommendation wasn't just to the audience, it was also to Matt. All right, cool. In that case, I think we can start to wrap up today's episode. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in to listen to today's episode. Remember that you can find us on all major podcasting platforms. We also upload these as videos to YouTube. And make sure that you can reach out to us on Instagram by following our Instagram account, What Is My Podcast About, or emailing us at whatismypodcastabout@gmail.com. If you have a question that you would like us to answer instead of us giving you questions, or if you just know what we should do our podcast about, be sure to reach out to us at any of the stuff I listed above, and tune back in a fortnight for our next episode. What are we doing for next episode?
It's funny you should say Fortnite, because I was just thinking I would probably sleep through the next one. I actually like being the Wizard Master when I sleep.